The lagoons of Yasuni National Park are home to the caiman, which are similar to alligators. To get to this part of the park, you have to use a canoe, but not many people try to work their way through the rainforest to get here. Yasuni National Park is located in eastern Ecuador and covers nearly 9,300 square kilometers. The park is home to a unique variety of plant and animal life. The indigenous Quechua tribe has lived in this region for centuries, hunting and fishing along the banks of the Napo River. Tribal spokesman Giovanni Rivadeneira is concerned about efforts by oil companies to exploit the region's extensive petroleum reserves. Rivadeneira and his tribe fear that any further drilling will cause irreparable harm to the rainforest and its unique biodiversity. What's more, local residents haven't shared in any of the oil profits.
We're very concerned about this situation. Ecuador's entire Amazon region is rich in petroleum. But the profits from the sale of oil that's been extracted so far have not gone to the local communities. The money ends up somewhere else, so we are opposed to any further oil drilling here.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the Amazon, oil drilling continues outside the confines of the park. Ivan Baki is heading the government's effort to protect the region. Baki notes that the natural gas that's produced as a byproduct of oil extraction is simply burned off. That produces a lot of harmful carbon dioxide. Ecuador needs the income that increased oil production would bring, but it also wants to preserve its unique ecological heritage. The government's effort is known as the Yasuni ITT initiative. The letters stand for the names of 3 oil fields inside the park. There's been no drilling in these fields so far, and the government wants to keep it that way.
This could be an example of sustainable development in a unique place that has the highest biodiversity, and that it's managed by the government, but also by their own communities that they want to save this place.
The park contains roughly 20% of Ecuador's proven oil reserves. The vast forested areas play an important role in storing carbon dioxide. The region is home to a rich variety of plant and animal life. Each square hectare of the park is said to contain an estimated 100,000 species of insects. Many species that are native to the region haven't even been identified yet. Experts say that Yasuni National Park is probably the most biologically diverse place on Earth. It was designated a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1989. But the environmental hazards that often accompany petroleum extraction could prove deadly to this fragile environment. Some drilling has already been allowed in 5 designated areas. The licenses were awarded decades ago. Those who favor preserving the park's natural resources say this kind of oil extraction has got to stop.
The
oil reserves are going to run out one day. So we shouldn't build our economy on those reserves alone. At this point, we should think about preserving Yasuni National Park, our last environmental sanctuary.
And Ecuador's government has come up with a way to do just that. The president has proposed to ban drilling in Yasuni National Park if the international community agrees to donate half of the value of the oil reserves. Surveys indicate that the proposal has widespread support. The German government thinks it's a good idea as well.
We've always supported this initiative because we share its goals. Over the last decade, we've actively demonstrated our support for the efforts of Ecuador's government to protect the biodiversity of this rainforest. In October 2012, we contributed 40 million euros to support this initiative.
Germany also supports several other programs in the region. One promotes carefully restricted ecotourism, which is aimed at providing the local residents with a source of income. Another supports the development of green energy sources. This species, the giant otter, is threatened with extinction, but thrives in Yasuni National Park. The same goes for several species of parrots. This clay is vital to the digestive process of some kinds of birds. In August 2010, Ecuador created the Yasuni ITT Trust Fund, which is administered by the UN Development Fund. The government hopes to raise 2.7 billion euros over 13 years through public and private contributions. So far, it has collected 7% of that total. The Quechua have set up small facilities for tourists. The structures are environmentally friendly and were subsidized by the government. About 1/3 of Ecuador's territory would be suitable for this kind of non-disruptive tourism. Yvonne Baki visits the park often as part of her work with the Trust Fund. The Quechua people also support the initiative because the park is vital to their survival. Baki says Ecuador needs economic aid and cannot rely exclusively on oil revenue. But the trust fund will allow the country to raise cash based on the value of the park's oil reserves.
Why is it that it's given compensation is given when you cut the trees and do the reforestation, they give you money? Why don't we have to be compensated by not cutting the trees? Not because of the oil, forget about the oil, just not touching this place which is so unique.
These days, it's difficult for the Quechua people to preserve their traditions. But it's nearly impossible for them to do so in the oil regions. That's why they hope that the initiative will be a success, and that the program will benefit the environment, mostly by preventing the release of an estimated 1.2 billion tons of CO2. The Quechua say that Yasuni National Park is a special place, a unique example of biodiversity, and it should stay that way.